advanced fast. Overnight rain had soaked the KZ and sugarcane roads and made things very tricky. Cox, though, broke a gearbox soon after and had to retire. In contrast, Variawa and Rousseau were having a trouble-free run and was second overall and in class. Grobler in a brand new Nissan Navara 4-litre was third fastest and second in the production car class. With the sun drying things out, though, it brought out the dust again. The McLaren XL dealer team in the form of Jaap and Goederbeen could hardly believe their SP speed. Grobler and Jordan were third overall and leading the production in SP class by more than 3 minutes, but there were clearly no team orders, as the Norwegian mountaineer Tollefson and Evans were chasing as hard as they could in second.
Going right, going right.
Brothers David and Gary White had impressed all and sundry with their big move up the order from 24th. They were up into the top 15. And as Brandon Harker stopped at the level crossing, he must have been hopeful of a good finish after stating that he would use the first few races to feel out the big Ford Ranger. He was up into third after being 11th at the start of the day. And in Class A, Clint Gibson and Mike Brown were up into third place all the way from 7th. The absolute bat was still going well. Former SA champ Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewold's Jimco was tagging along, one race away from a livery and sponsor change. The Cries themselves had put away a few big scalps and on lap 3 clocked a blistering time. They were leading Class B by a massive 28 minutes, while Gillingham and Van Vieren have a never-say-die attitude. And were it not for a troublesome starter motor installing the car twice, Foss and Pitchford may well have been leading. Schilling and Davies, again leading Class S, were next, 12th overall after a stunning drive from virtually the back of the field. But a wrong slot on these narrow roads can lead to trouble and an altercation or two. The traffic jam looked worse than the N1 on a Friday afternoon at 5. For Besaidnout and De Bruin, though, leading Class B, there were no such worries. In Class E, the Balkhuizens, George and his better half Sharon were leading by almost 40 minutes and just had to keep the Toyota on the road to get the win. Almost. While the BB Auto Nissan team were very pleased with being able to survive as well as what they had, the Duplessis in control. And their stablemates, Andre Duplessis and Jan Knox, right on their exhaust pipe. The Ryobi Nissan, with the brothers Henry and Maurice Matten aboard, were also on their way to the line and saw some interesting sights on the way. While Ramon Besaidnout and Stefan Locke in their Toyota gained valuable manufacturer's point for their team by leading the way home in Class D, they had a 10-minute time gap. With the deploys and their retirement fund solutions Nissan right up there in class. Martin and Fourie were next, second in Class E, but quite a long way back. And Shalane and Stubbs in their Vertico also piling on the pressure towards the end in Class B, but showing the scars. With the Sandmaster of the Rochers chasing as hard as possible in the closing stages. And several cars keeping them honest, including Peckham and Santoro in the diesel Ford. Richard Everingham was one of 2 single-seaters out there and was going well. And a jolly Gary Campbell was right behind him, and even had time to wave. But make no mistake, Gluwe was tough, very tough. With a big dropout rate, the conditions ranged from very hot and dry to wet and muddy, and then everything else in between too.
Yes, you can.
The Harpers, father Nick and son Ryan, were again right in the thick of things and clocked the fastest lap of the day, and that on the final loop too. Voriawa and Rousseau demonstrated that they were getting the Total Motorsport porter to listen to them nicely, and they were storming up the order and into second. With Grobler looking for all the world like he was going to make it 2 out of 2 wins in 2007. Tollefson, however, never stopped chasing, but the gap stayed round about the 3-minute mark, and try as he might, it would not shrink. Harkus blistered the Ford around the Zulu Kingdom's lush fauna and flora just 3 odd minutes down from there, while Foss and Pitchford kept the Nissan flag flying high by making it 3 in the top 4. With the evergreen Schilling steering the Pastotec Aceco to yet another very solid finish. Gibson and Brown had killed a few giants on the way and were only 13 minutes down on the lead. With Alberts and Hunter wrong slotting close to the line, but luckily it didn't cost them much time. Gillingham and Van Vieren were nicely settled in Class A, except for this quick correction. While the Cries themselves did some giant slaying and were leading class by a massive 8 minutes. The Excel McCarran was still going strongly, but the De Bruins knew that it's not over till it's over. But the Harpers were still stamping down their authority. With Voriawa and Rousseau chasing absolutely all out. And in the production car race, it was Grobler who was still 180 seconds ahead of the challengers, who happened to be his overseas stablemate Ivor Tollefson, who'd certainly not backed off 1 iota. And Harkus, his car somewhat lighter, going full bore to join the fray. This was great off-road racing. At the end of the last loop, the hot KZN sun had baked all the moisture out of the ground, and engine, man and suspension could feel the different circumstances and conditions. The Rapsa bat of Alberts and Hunter was still sounding like $1,000,000. While the Cries seemingly had another win in the bag, they were on an amazing run. Former national champion Foss, his car still looking good for another lap, came whizzing by, making Nissan hearts proud. While the Whites were literally flying to get there. Gibson and Brown did enough to hold their station in the top 10. While there was trouble for the Silvots. That's off-road racing for you.
Not sure what it is.
And Schilling just kept plugging away as is his wont. He was still leading Class S comfortably. Marsh and Groenewald showed that they were getting things back on track after a slow start in the Cape. And in Class B, Besaidnout and De Bruins Adenko bat was batting along well. That's pun intended. And the second Adenko bat with the Besaidnout crew were right on their tail, and they knew they couldn't make a mistake. The Barkhuisens were again looking like a high placing and a great showing in Class E despite the loss of bodywork. Besaidnout and Locke, however, would not give them a second to relax and were ready to pounce on any mistakes. With Corbett and Balzar showing just how quick the local wildlife can be. The Kuns were good as gold in Class D in their good-looking landing. While BB Auto's team were happy to see their crew approach the airfield at the finish line. Martin and Free were starting to show that their Castor Toyota was going to be good in 07 in Class E. With the Niemanns, Gerard and Zelda wrong slotting here right in front of our cameras. Always happens, doesn't it? While Van Tonder and Guapa on the way to 11th place in the productions and 3rd in Class E. Schroeder and Huxtable are masters at saving their car and getting it to the line, and they did it again in Grooglue. They were 6th in class. Gosler and Carolyn also did a fine job of getting their Kopenhagen Hotel racecoat to the finish and looked quite clean as well. And one for the single-seaters as Gary Campbell brought it home in 17th place in the specials. Gavin Gray and Mark Saru and their Nissan took the second-to-last finisher spot, with Jack Peckham and Lucio Santoro piloting the Ford Racing Ranger to 4th in Class E after a solid last loop. But at the line, it was applause for the Harpers, who were spectacular yet even-tempered as they crossed the finish line in 6 hours and 23 minutes of racing. They clocked their fastest lap of the day on the final loop of the course. Varjava gave it his all on the last lap, clocking the fastest time of the day by almost 4 minutes. But only 19 cars made it to the line. Grobler thought that he'd flattered 6 Ks from the finish, only to discover that he'd actually completely lost a wheel, a testament to the toughness of the Nissan Navara. But he celebrated his 22nd National Championship race win in 50 starts since 2001. But only 15 cars finished in the production car race as well. So after 2 races, Grobler with a clear points lead at the top, but Voss and Harkes tied in second. And in the specials, the Harpers, who led the national championship chase, 9 points ahead of Varjawa and Rousseau, with Hutchison poised as well.
Vehicle